Well, hello my friends. Welcome to Carpo's channel. I'd like to talk for a little bit about herbs. And to give an idea of where I'm coming from here, I want to condense as much information as I can into a short period of time here. Although that said, most likely my video will be much longer than I anticipated. And I have a lot to talk about when it comes to herbs. And so I'll disclose right off, I'm an herbalist and I sell herbs on my website, but that is completely separate from the reason why I'm doing this video. You know, the reason I say that is because so many videos, not just videos, but websites and informational sites in general, they'll give you a whole rundown of an herb and how great it is, and then they'll start talking about a particular extraction method is the best, and then, oh, lo and behold, they sell it. Everybody's trying to promote their product, and it's always been this way. It's nothing new. And you can't blame people, you know. Everybody wants to sell whatever they're trying to sell, you know, and that's the world we live in. But when it comes to herbs, I take them very seriously, and there's a lot to learn about them. Some people take herbs as a complete joke. They say, I can't believe people still take that old folk medicine, you know. They say, we need to take one component and refine it down into a pharmaceutical, and that's what I'll trust. And I've had people literally tell me just that they only trust it if the FDA has approved it and Big Pharma has actually patented it because they know it's well tested. I can get into that later, but let's just say, if you knew how many people died from legal pharmaceuticals each year, and compared that to how many people die from herbal supplements, you might have a different viewpoint on it. It's more of a matter of efficacy. People want something that's going to work, and when it comes to herbs, one of the biggest issues is consistency. And so I should probably start off, because I could go on and on off the top of my head here, but I really have a list of information I'd like to cover first. First off, I'm no expert, but I am an expert as much as I think that I think that it's worth hearing me out just as much as anybody else, because of all the people I've listened to talk about herbalism and various cures. There's a lot of misunderstandings out there, and a lot of people don't know as much as they want to want to think that they know. And like I said, everyone's trying to sell something, so it's hard to just say, hey, these herbs may or may not work for you. Your body chemistry may differ from mine. Everyone's different. But there are categories we can fit into as far as, you know, the way certain herbs and drugs work. So to get to the list, the first thing these are all several notes that I took because I wanted to cover. First one is herbalist school. Is it worth the money? The question is, what do we retain? And how much do people retain? And anybody who's been to school knows you retain very little. It depends on the person and the type of school, but what I mean is over a long period of time, if you don't have continuing education, we tend to forget many of the basic things that we learned. The question with school itself is different than herbal school. You know, people want to get you certified to be an herbalist, and I had considered doing that. I said, I want to do everything I possibly can to know as much as I can about herbs. And perhaps partially due to my stubborn nature, but partially because I realize it's more complex than just basic herbs, that the knowledge is evolving so quickly that paying for an education may work for some people. I'm not a structured person. I like to do things on my own terms. But when I heard some herbalists talk about what to do with that knowledge, they said, well, you could teach herbalism, or you could write blogs, or, you know, make videos, or write books. And I thought, that's the same thing they say about philosophers. You take a philosophy class, and what can you really learn about philosophy? Nothing. You have to have hands-on experience with these things. So, I for one have been fascinated with herbs since I was young. I wrote my senior paper on cannabis and the medical benefits, and I remember just being fascinated with that herb. And I'll tell you, to this day, cannabis is still one of the most fascinating herbs to me, because the differences in terpenes, which are the volatile oils or essential oils of a plant, they vary so widely in cannabis. There are dozens of different types of, smells, if you will. You know, for example, D-limonene is the smell of lemon. Orangish smells that are different, slightly different. There's a lot of citrus smells that come out of cannabis, but also then there's the spicier ones, the ones that are more like nutmeg, which share some of these same terpenes, the exact same smell components. The smell can tell you a lot about a plant's benefit. At least in the cannabis world, this is what I found to be true, and I would imagine this extends into the herbal world, but Um, One of the hardest things about telling people, hey, yeah, this is a great herb, is realizing the body differences. And I have recently studied a little bit more about, there's some recent studies that show that dopamine levels in certain people, I think it's either 20 to 30% of the population, has lower dopamine levels and lower dopamine production. And this may have to do with the way our ancestors fought for food. And I don't want to get too deep into that one either, but basically serotonin, if you're content and you're well fed, serotonin, your body is at a level where you feel content. You don't need dopamine for the, let's say, the motivational aspect of it. But if you're hungry, your dopamine will kick into overdrive to force you to go out and hunt and get the reward for the hunt and to be satisfied. It's a very complex system that also has acetylcholine and norepinephrine. These four compounds work together, but there's so many more. I mean, these are neurochemicals that we can identify, but all they are, you think about this, these are atomic structures. And these atomic structures, or rather molecules, they can be built, they can be destroyed by our body and our mind. We can't look in to see what's really happening on the molecular level as you're having a thought change or a situational change. It's very difficult to gauge these things. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of folks out there who seem to think that people have certain diseases figured out or know how they work. I'll tell you, people don't even know how antidepressants work in a lot of cases. It's serious. In the medical industry, a lot of things are prescribed because they have a side effect of an antidepressant. Or let's say somebody's taking a pain medication and they find it helps them with their anxiety. Then they'll start prescribing something for anxiety. Or vice versa, you know. Pharmaceutical industry is good at patenting single compounds. But when it comes to plants, it's a completely different world. But I'll get to that. Harvest times, location, and quality are huge issues when it comes to herbs. Harvest time of the year, I've ordered mucuna, for example, trying a batch of mucuna, and it was like a greenish color, and I still never sold it. I was probably just going to throw it out. I sent them an email, you know, to the company I ordered from, and I know it's from South America, and I know the people who sell it, and they send a sheet with it. And every herb I get, it's tested in the paperwork that I get. I get some from India, and I get none from China or Mexico. I would highly advise against getting herbs from China or Mexico, and don't buy the cheapest herbs. And I'll explain why in just a minute. But the thing that people forget is many of the drugs or pharmaceuticals are not just derived from herbs. They're at least inspired by herbal compounds. And they'll find an herb that's worked traditionally for so long, and they'll say, well, how do we patent this? Well, the only way to do it is to make a synthetic, make an analog, and patent that, and then convince the world that the herb's a joke and that they just need big pharma's, you know, pill. I'm not going to go into the pharma conspiracy thing here. I realize that they got their pockets are full and they have their hands in everything. Yes, they're trying to keep cannabis illegal in a lot of cases. Yes, they're trying to probably ban kratom as well, which kratom is an amazing herb, which people are still just discovering. And behind the scenes, there are people fighting for our rights to keep these things legal. Back in 1994, they tried to ban not just herbal supplements, but vitamin C. They wanted it controlled and regulated by the FDA. They said they received more letters from the public and notes from the public on that issue of leave our supplements alone than they got during the whole Vietnam War. That issue was so important to people because of all the money that was put into commercials to say, hey, leave our supplements alone. They wanted to ban vitamin C. You know, all of these different things fell into this blanket, and it was government overreach. So today, by contrast, people say, well, isn't the FDA protecting us? Aren't they protecting us from these harmful supplements? No, it's up to us to buy from reputable suppliers and reputable vendors. And that's partially the reason why I'm making this, to save many people the trouble from going down to GNC and just buying their various herbal powders, because they're probably not what they say they are. And I have statistics for that one, which are coming up too, and I want to just follow my list as I wrote it so I don't forget. I found that there's the herbs, there's the growers, the placebo factor, and the expectations of the person who's using it are very important aspects. But there are fake herbs on the market, and it's a $5 billion industry out of a $20 billion herbal industry, and about a third of the herbs on the market are fake, completely bunk. And I'll tell you, there was a study done by a group, okay, the fake supplements, they went out and they took 44 of the supplements off the shelf, and they tested them from 12 different retailers, okay? Now these included Walmart, Walgreens, Target, and GNC even. And they went out and tested 44 of these, okay, in 2015. Now, they found out that, God, I forgot to write down the actual amounts here. There was a book I have over here that had the statistics. There was another study done in 2013, and they found 68% of all the herbs on the market that are sold in bottles or whatever, 68% were found to have ingredients not listed on the label. And many of them are just fillers and whatnot, but some of them were allergens, such as, beans, which could be an issue with legumes if somebody's allergic to nuts, and wheat. But a full 30% of the ones that were tested had none of the listed ingredients on the label in it whatsoever. None. It was all filler. Some of them were peas and carrots, and some of them, even one of the ones that said gluten-free, actually had wheat as a filler. And, and I'm not sitting here trying to harp on the herb industry, but I am harping on the herb industry. It's complete bullshit. People are out there ripping each other off. And it sucks because, a person who's honest and trying to sell good quality has to know who their vendor's getting theirs from, and all the way down the source chain. And anybody can throw in a fake certificate and pretend like something's, actually tested. You have to be very wary, and if you're going to be taking something and ingesting it into your body daily, don't you want to know where it's coming from? And people trust that others are doing that for them, and they're not. FDA has nothing involved in the herbal industry whatsoever. They can't do anything to act on a company making claims until a drug is shown to be unsafe. So in other words, it's the exact opposite of the pharmaceutical industry. With the herbal market, you're welcome to sell whatever you want and make claims, as long as you put that little statement that these are not evaluated by the FDA, which is fine, because that comes to the next thing when I put, there's a place called, one of the issues with selling herbs is you have to love what you do, and you have to have a passion for it, and you have to care about people. And some of these companies are just, unscrupulous, just rip-off artists that want to make money. Consumer Lab is a company, and I'm not going to sit here and talk shit about Consumer Labs. There are 3 different ones. There's Consumer Lab, NSF International, and U.S. Pharmacopoeia, which is also said USP certified. Now, I don't know about the other 2, but there's a conflict of interest with Consumer Lab. Basically, you can become a member for like $45 a year, and that allows you to have access to which herbs passed their test. And they test herbs every year. A company can pay to be on their list, but here's the thing. A company can pay $4,000 a year to be not mentioned in the ones that failed. So there's a complete conflict of interest there, I guess. And on top of that, if you have a third party, if you're considering yourself a consumer lab and people trust your judgment on these herbs, but then you're just omitting information about bad vendors because they pay you for it, that's a huge issue. And you have to look into that one yourself, but just because an herbal blend says something on it, it means absolutely nothing. It really means nothing. USP certified or otherwise. Batches change, seasons change, quality, storage, shelf life, all these are important, and people forget all the different aspects. But most of all, does it really have originally what it says it does on the label? Are you taking something else that's harmful, or is it a lesser quality herb that was maybe manufactured in China and perhaps could have high heavy metal contents? And that's a big issue. Okay, so the FDA has no say, and people can make any claims without evidence, of course. There can be metals, pesticides, and adulterants, and one of the biggest issues that I'm afraid of right now is RCs, or otherwise known as research chemicals. These are the ones that are sold on the street. There's some great ones. There's some wonderful psychedelic analogs out there. But at the same time, along with those came fentanyl analogs and other things. There's fentanyl, which I believe is 100 times stronger than heroin, and carfentanil, which is even more. I can't remember the numbers, but the point is it's fucking strong. And 2 milligrams, over 2 milligrams can kill someone. And it's, you know, this is part of the opioid problem, which is another reason why people can find other solutions to their problem with pain, and Kratom happens to be one of those. But if you can't patent the plant, you know, what's the point? Pharma ain't going to do anything about it. It's up to us to spread the word and share these things with one another and say there are other solutions, and herbs are not a joke. They're serious medicine. Some of the ones I take, like this is rhodiola extract. At the end of the video, I'm going to do a little thing about my smoothies and what I take, because somebody asked. But rhodiola is potent. All these are potent. Ashwagandha extract. Somebody bought some of this from me and told me they took the same dose as they usually take, 5 grams, and they said that they've been feeling weird for 2 days. I'm like, yeah, no shit. That's hardcore. That's a lot of extract to take, you know, at once. You have to be very wary. Herbs are no joke. You can't just take how many you want. You have to be very cautious. And this is why I find it so interesting that people think it's kind of a joke, that herbs are like a joke. They're not. But since pharma can't patent the plants, they won't do anything with them. One of the biggest issues with plants over single compounds is the synergy of the plant compounds. Now, this comes down to a lot of anecdotal evidence and my own opinion. I'm not going to pretend like this is factual, but what I'm about to say is not a fact. I believe that the plant synergy of the compounds within the plant, and the synergy is the relationship and the way that they work together. I believe that nature is consciously aware of the plants and medicines that it makes. Everything seems to fit together like a puzzle, so to speak. And not to get into the etheric realms, I know that there are, you know, issues where nature is not exactly perfect in the way we'd like it to be. There's a lot of poisonous plants and animals out there, but there's always a cure for that within the same environment that the poison is in. Nettles being a cure for nettle stings. It goes on, but I believe that we have much more to gain from taking plants. While the compounds that you're taking might not be as strong overall, the full benefit seems to be much more worthwhile. It comes back to me saying, how many times do you take pharmaceuticals and have to take pharmaceuticals because you take pharmaceuticals, and then other pharmaceuticals to cover up the side effects of those, and end up paying a fortune and then getting sick and feeling like crap? What is the advantage to taking pharmaceuticals over herbs? Well, the advantage is consistency, and insurance pays for it some of the time. And people feel confident with their doctors. I would say don't. Don't trust your doctor knows exactly what they're talking about. Hopefully you have a good relationship with them, but remember, a doctor went to school to become a doctor. They didn't go there to explain to you how to eat properly and exercise and take care of yourself, which are the most important components of being a healthy, happy person. Mental outlook, and this is where I come to the second part of my story here. I better make sure the camera's still going, because it's been a long video. Let's see how much time's elapsed, actually. Wow, 18 minutes. It's a long video, but I want to do it all in one instead of making 2 videos, because, you know, this is an important one to me. A few of the notes I took on the back were just the ones about ourselves. If you want to take herbs, if you feel like you want herbs in your life, these are the things I think are important for what it's worth. First off, what herbs do we actually need? I find myself taking, you know, probably more than I need to, because I'm trying to experiment and branch out and try different products. I take several different mushrooms daily and herbal blends and whatnot, and I have a whole, you know, plethora of things that I take, but I rotate, and that's an important issue. But what ones do we need, and what are we trying to mend? The reason why I don't really take a lot of the anti-anxiety ones, like, you know, rhodiola very much and whatnot, is because I'm not very anxious. I'm an intense person, but I have embraced the fact that I need that intensity to get through my daily chores and work and life and kids and family and everything. But I enjoy the intensity, and I know that there are certain herbs that can help you relax as well, like kava. The list goes on, but what are we really after? Not just taking herbs for the sake of, I've heard this is good for you, but know what we need. So ask ourselves, what ails us? That's important. Try a few herbs and then rotate and change. Take breaks. That's important too. I take Mucuna pruriens, which is the type I take is standardized to 25% L-Dopa. And what I should mention, not to get too backtrack a little bit here, L-Dopa, or I should say standardized herbs, are herbs that have been standardized to a certain certain amount of an active compound. Doesn't mean that the other compounds are always the same, but whatever you're looking for, like in mucuna, it's L-dopa. So the stuff I take is standardized to 25% L-dopa, whereas the natural bean is about 3 to 5 or 6%. So knowing that, you can have accurate doses. You don't have to say, well, herbs are all wishy-washy and you never know what you're getting. If it's standardized, that's something to really look out for. And if you're taking mushroom extracts, the cell walls of those are made from chitin, and chitin is very hard and it will not break down in your stomach. So if you're taking raw mushrooms, backtrack, buy some extracts, and realize that ones like red reishi, they have to be taken in 2 different forms of extracts to get all the full benefits. In other words, alcohol and a water extract. And the issues are much more complex with other herbs, but that's for another video. Mental health comes first. You have to keep your mind in check. You have to keep a positive attitude. I know that sometimes the whole reason we want to take these things is so we can feel positive. But first and foremost, have the intention of feeling good in the daytime. Make it an effort. Work. Don't let the herbs do any work for you to make you happy. You have to be happy and use them to continue and supplement, a way to feel that way, if you will. It's more difficult, I know. Eat properly and exercise. Stay active, mentally and otherwise. Check for any underlying illness. If you have a long-term anxiety or long-term depression, check for perhaps an underlying illness that is making you think, well, I just want to be normal, and it might be something that you're just not aware of. That's harder to find sometimes without going to the doctor. Keep on researching and never stop. Never stop. Spend the time. Spend at least a couple minutes a day researching the latest on the herbs that you take. Know what you're doing. It doesn't take that long to really skim through some scientific articles. You don't have to grasp it all, but look at the studies that have been done and try to understand about the body and the mind. One of the hardest things is there are a lot of people who are herbalists. I believe if you're not studying the mind and neurochemistry, you can't get the full picture and understand it. How they interact. You might say, oh, you're sad, take this for serotonin. Oh yeah, people say, oh, just take some 5-HTP. It's like, no. There's more to it than that, Precursors are great, but you have to make sure you know what you're talking about. And only experimentations sometimes will tell you that. But that's no different from going to the doctor and having them give you 10 different antidepressants to try, not knowing which one's actually going to work. And if that doesn't work, take this and take this, and on down the line, a pill for this, pill for that. I have a whole completely separate pharma video I'm going to do to rip them an asshole, but that's something that I'm working on. It's a project, and I don't know if I'll ever finish it. Be aware of interaction warnings when you're taking herbs, and be cautious of ones you're taking together. There are a lot of substances that cancel each other out. Molecules fit like locks and keys sometimes. I don't know all of how it works. It's beyond my expertise, but I know that taking certain things with certain things blocks them out. Calcium can block things out. So research if anything is counterindicated. The time of day that you take a substance is super important. I cannot stress this enough. Kratom has taught me this. Cannabis has taught me this over the years. But having a toke in the morning is different than the evening. Taking an herb in the morning has a different effect than the evening. That's all I can say about that one. I can make a complete separate video for that. And from day to day, if you're feeling ill or having a bad day, the herbs might not affect you the same. Same with pharmaceuticals. The mind is delicate, but it's tough. Keep a journal of recipes, blends, and experiences. Self-explanatory. It's easy to forget. And that's about it. Plant allies speak to our souls, and we as human beings have a lot to learn about herbs. I was going to do a video about what I take in my smoothie, but I'm going to do that in a second video because I know that I'm out of time here and this one's long. So I bid you farewell. I hope you've learned something. If you have, you can donate $5,000 to my Patreon account so I can buy more herbs. And I'm totally kidding. I'll talk to you all later. Have a wonderful day. And let's see, what else is there? That's it, man. Peace.